inside online communities. Some of the things that we learned along the way from them is that they really had this expectation that the entire experience was going to be mobile. You know, we really took this approach, this iterative approach, where we put out version 1, then version 2, version 3, version 4. I think it's 4 versions in 7 months. 4 versions in 7 months. But the initial version, you know, there was the ability to do dialogues in that, but they couldn't necessarily respond to everything in the community on the mobile app. And there was also a lack of understanding of what they actually could do in the mobile app. So much like usability testing for a website, you need to make sure that you understand and that you help people understand what the capabilities of that mobile app are with regards to interacting with the community. And so one of the things that they've added now is a tutorial that helps them understand where the functionality is for the app. There is also an issue with typing longer responses. I believe this is only true of people who actually know how to type on a keyboard. I type 10 words per minute. I can type just as fast on my phone as I can. But when people who are used to responding to open-ended questions, you know, on a regular keyboard, maybe they'll give you 100, 120 words. We saw that we were getting more in the range of 60 words for an open-end on the mobile app. But that's still a significant amount of words for an open-ended question. And again, it's also at the point where they want to do it, the mobile app. And then finally, it does take some additional moderating to get people to use the functionality of the app. So, you know, the benefits of we want to see the pictures, we want the videos, we want them to be interacting and with other people and that kind of stuff. You know, it's very easy for someone to just respond to questions via the phone or the smartphone. If you go back and really encourage them to share, maybe even show their face, they can be a little modest about putting themselves in the videos, then we got much greater participation in those type of activities. So really, next going on to, from GM's perspective, so what were some of the pains? Educating cross-functional teams. So I know people talked about, you know, we all remember the early internet where we spent all of our time convincing people that it wasn't a 16-year-old, you know, kid online pretending to be a 45-year-old woman. I have a similar job to Charlie at GM where I'm in charge of like the new methods, digitalizing market research. So I do online communities, online advisors to create market models, internet research. So I have done this selling and this educating about, oh, it's valid, it's useful, they're not free, so many times that I was really expecting to have to go to that with mobile. The shocking thing was, this is the first technology that my leadership came to me and asked me to do mobile research. That's a good and bad thing, because they also had a certain expectation of what they wanted that mobile research to look like. And so they began to think, well, I can take, you know, a 40-minute conjoint, put it on a mobile smartphone, and it'll be great, and I can get it, you know, all over the world, and, you know, by Friday. So it was really building this foundation with the organization to say, we're going to start small, we're going to start safe. We're going to increase the functionality, we're going to, you know, start with something that, you know, we're confident in its ability to execute, and then we're going to kind of stretch out and branch out into some of the more interesting things that the smartphone technology would allow us to do. But one of the biggest things at GM was that we got our first mobile survey, and the analysts and I all looked at each other and said, does anyone have an iPhone so that we can test it? And we realized that we don't have the technology to actually do any of this. We had, most of our analysts had flip phones until last year. Everyone makes fun of BlackBerries. We were so excited to get BlackBerries. I mean, we finally looked somewhat cool, and then you guys all passed by again. But you've got this issue because there's so many different platforms that I'm going to end up with this closet full of technology with iPhones and Droids and iPads and you know, all sorts of different things, but you need to have that technology so that the organization can experience these research activities. And that was one thing that we realized. So we basically went and swiped OnStar, had 4 iPhones, and we were doing an internal project with some of our early Volt drivers. So we went and swiped OnStar's iPhone to give it to the Bolt drivers. And then there's this, again, with the request coming from leadership of we should do this and think of all the great things we can do, is deciding what you should do rather than what you can do. And this starts to play into the whole ethics and privacy issues that, yeah, I might want you to go and take pictures of your neighbor's vehicle and all the vehicles that are in their driveway, but do I really want to put people in that situation? And as an auto company, I've got a different issue of, do I really want you answering surveys in your vehicle down the expressway at 70 miles an hour? You know, so I definitely saw some feedback on some questions where I was like, I'm just going to leave that in case legal comes. So you need to be very careful from both the privacy, ethical, and safety standpoint of where to execute mobile. And then this was really interesting because I think one of the reasons why we could really keep progressing along in this space was that we started in a safe place. So we originally started with the Bolt drivers who were internal employees who had been given the privilege of driving one of the early production Bolts. And we gave them a mobile app to complete their daily feedback through. And so they owed us. So we knew they would do it. They were going to drive Bolts. And we started with this youth confidant panel, which was younger, and the organization felt like, well, they're more forgiving if it doesn't work. You know, they probably get the technology better. So we started in some places, again, that were very specifically chosen for this technology. So just to briefly talk about what we're really excited about as an automotive manufacturer, and I'm hoping that this is like comedy where if you hear the same thing 3 times, it really, you know, sticks. Because these are some of those common things about you're now in the vehicle or you're in the location where you want the research to happen. You know, it is easy to put a can of Coke next to your computer to fill out a survey. You cannot put your Escalade next to your computer to fill out a survey. But you can put your phone into your Escalade. And so, you know, it's the same thing if, you know, your fantasy football kickoff party. You can have your phone there, and that's 2 sporting analogies I read in 2 days. So that's very exciting for us, because our only option otherwise is to bring people to a central location clinic, have them bring their own vehicle, and interact with it. There's also this visual piece that is very unfiltered. So one person's idea in a survey of my vehicle is very organized is very different from another person's idea of my vehicle is very organized. And that when you actually get their vehicle in the pictures, it helps us understand. And it takes even further when you get to the video.
Feature in my vehicle that I would like improved is the cup holders. You can see here that I have a tall bottle and a short bottle, and this tall bottle is a little bit skinnier than your typical bottle, but it's a typical water bottle, and you can see it just like rattles around in there. There's nothing to keep it in there. And then I have a short bottle, which is still short, but it falls.
So we at GMR built 150-page PowerPoint presentations, but one video like that can take 30 or 40 pages out of it. Because I don't need a lot of data about the problem with our cup holders, I can really start to share with the designers the issues that are, the emotional issues that our consumers are having. And so the final thing that I'm going to share is this universal implication of having an app for, a mobile app for a community. And that's the reach and validity. We've heard this, again, throughout the last couple of days. But, you know, we had a research community in Australia that never really ramped up very strong, because what we found out from our people in Australia was that our people in Australia were out doing things interesting, that they weren't sitting at home answering surveys. So there was this idea that, well, gosh, when you start to look at mobile communities as opposed to online communities, that you can have access to some of these people that won't be at home to participate in the community. And then, like, I know in my home personally, I have 5 computers and 6 email addresses. But I have 2 cell phones. But most people in the world have 1 cell phone. So it's much easier to tie a person to a cell phone than to tie them to an email address or even a computer. So we're very excited about that idea globally, from both getting the consumers we want and making sure that they're truly that consumer.
And you know, as we talked about earlier, we kind of said, well, if we create this, we hope it will do X, Y, and Z. What have we learned so far? We kind of want to share some of our learnings. We took a look at 82,000 posts, 18,000 consumers, and we know when people post to our communities from the app. This is what we've learned so far. On average, those users are more than twice as active as non-mobile members, which tracks with what Facebook statistics would say as well. Second, that they post using the app over 20% of the time. So yeah, it's not the only thing they do, not the only method they use, but it is, as we said, it's an extension of the experience. It's not intended to replace it at this point. And also, as Joyce mentioned, they're shorter responses than online, but you know what? There's no text language. They're really well thought out points. I want to just quickly go out further into the future and say, where's this all going? We agree with John and Charlie, geolocation, very important for the future. Gamification, we're very excited about the idea of making this mobile experience fun, but also a way of delivering new types of insights through gamification. Barcode scanning, those guys talked great, a lot about that, I think it's great. The idea of live mobile ethnography, I think the advent of 4G is actually going to make that possible. So we're excited about that as a potential as well. But I want to leave you with one other thing. If you want to just take a big step back and say, from a generational perspective, why is this significant? These types of devices, the multi-touch interface is the baseline of the newest generation. Just like digital natives have never not known the internet to exist, this multi-touch generation has never not known this type of interface to exist. I want to have you introduce you to my little guy, Jack, who's a great example of this. He's not 2 yet, but watch how he interacts with this device. And think about what you think that means for the future. I would love to think that Jack's a prodigy. It's all prodigy. Jack's really typical of millions and millions of kids in this generation. This is their baseline. This is their initial technological imprint. This is important. And again, take a look at it from a very broad perspective. This is why the app is where it's at. Thank you very much.
I loved your video of your son. That is phenomenal. And I would love to show that to every moderator who has not yet embraced emerging technology. And I think that will sell them to get on the boat.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's remarkable, really. Jason.
Just as curious about the takeout of the app downloading to your team. So how many folks will do that?
Well, I think with youth count, we're around 10%. So, yeah, so it's really indexed again higher than the